Good Friday evening to you. Thanks for watching Wgxa News at 10. I'm Aaron Leedy. Working for you tonight, a local cemetery has received complaints about the condition grave sites have been left in, but a roadblock has stopped anything from fixing it. Tonight, we're working for you to get answers to questions that many of you have contacted us about. WGXA's Miles Garrett is live at that cemetery now. And Miles, so what's causing the holdup here?
Yeah, Aaron, yesterday we received pictures of this cemetery just behind me, located off Pianona in Macon. The conditions are very bad here, and for some reason, no one wants to claim this area.
I kind of walked through and was disturbed by some of the things I saw here. It just seems a shame, you know.
Driving past Pianona Avenue in Macon, you might see an arch marking the entrance to a cemetery. Once you get in, the site is something truly disturbing.
We're completely covered with brush and limbs, and you couldn't even tell a grave was there unless you kicked it away.
David Parkerson drove by the cemetery and he couldn't help but stop to walk through to see just how bad the situation was.
I saw graves that had water damage, where it looks like water had actually washed away, and you could actually see up under the concrete and almost see the grave.
Some graves almost invisible, and that includes war heroes.
When I was going through this and I saw the graves, some of them marked with military honors and stuff, I thought about, what if that was my dad, or what if that was my mom? I mean, I would be tremendously upset.
So who's responsible for cleaning up the property? Jesus Mission of Love Holiness Church sits next to the cemetery. I went to Pastor Beatrice Collier's house after knocking on the church doors. She told me that Unionville Baptist owns it, the previous owners of the church. I went to Unionville Baptist, where I spoke with Reverend Edwin Mack. He tells me his church doesn't own it either. The next step? Finding who's really responsible.
When it gets to a certain level, the state or somebody has to step in. If the church is no longer able to perform its duties, then somebody has to step in and do something to prevent it getting this bad.
Now, I also reached out to city leaders in Macon earlier this afternoon, asking them if they own this property. They told me they don't and referred me to the tax assessor's office. They were closed due to business hours. We are going to reach out to them, working for you next week as soon as possible, Monday morning, to get the right answer as to who exactly owns this property and what they can do to fix it as soon as they can. For now, reporting live in Macon, I'm Miles Garrett.
Miles, thanks. We are expected to learn more after a military member was found dead outside of a Macon hotel today. Just before 6 p.m., a body was discovered off of Riverside Drive in Macon. The woman found dead just before 6 o'clock was in her car outside the Haven Motel off of Riverside Drive. Chief Coroner Leon Jones confirming the woman was part of the military.
But the surveillance tape at the motel confirmed that she was alive on July 20th. So she's been dead since July 20th. She's in very, very decomp stage. My staff is here and we're suiting up to get her out the car.
Jones said he didn't see any evidence of foul play. This is still under investigation. It was a close call for a Macon man after his vehicle caught fire. Our crews arrived at the scene moments after fire officials put out that fire on I-75. The owner of this charred vehicle says he was driving along I-75 northbound when he saw smoke coming from the console, and then it quickly turned into raging flames. Driver's fine, but he did have very minor burns on his hands.
Good Friday evening to everybody. Welcome to the Skywatch Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Jake Mammon, in for Chief Meteorologist Jeff Cox this evening. Live look outside downtown Macon from our Wilson Bryant Heating Air Skycast Network. 76 degrees with a calm wind. So, hey, a pretty good evening to start your weekend as we head on into the end of July here. In fact, taking a look at the temperatures across Middle Georgia right now, we're in the mid to upper 70s across much of Middle Georgia. 77 in Milledgeville, 73 there in Gray, 76 here in Macon, of course, and 75 in Warner Robins. So we're starting to cool off as we head into the overnight hours. Now, what I've been talking about for the past week or so, the setup that we're seeing right now, high pressure system to our north with the breeze coming out of the north-northeast will keep our temperatures cool. Coming up in Maine weather in just a few minutes, how long will we expect this dry pattern to last? And I'm tracking those rain chances. Aaron?
All right, Jake, we'll see you in a bit. We turn now to developing news across the country. Wfxl has reached a $700 million settlement over the largest data breach in history. Now, if you don't do anything, you waive your right to sue Equifax in the future and give up on the $125 or 10 years of free credit monitoring provided by the settlement. Your deadline to opt out is November 19th, and your deadline to file a claim based on this settlement is January 22nd. The company joined Yahoo, MySpace, Target, LinkedIn, and more on the list of the largest data breaches in history. Age versus youth, squaring off within the Democratic Party. Right now, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is trying to piece her caucus back together as she sets the bar high for an impeachment effort she doesn't seem to want. Fox's Mike Emanuel has details on what went down between today's meeting between Pelosi and the new Guard squad leader.
I think the Speaker respects, the fact that we're coming together as a party and that unity, and I'm looking forward to us getting back in September.
After some nasty bickering, Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tried today to patch things up.
These some personality issues and the rest, they're minor. We have a big schism in our country between what is happening, could happen in this Congress, and what is happening in the White House.
But the feud with the 4 freshman lawmakers known as the Squad has been public and ugly, with Pelosi mocking their Twitter world, their influence, and their policy ideas. Ocasio-Cortez fired back at the Speaker, telling the Washington Post, quote, "The persistent singling out, it got to a point where it was just outright disrespectful, the explicit singling out of newly elected women of color."
Called you downright disrespectful?
Well, that's we're in a political arena.
The top Republican in the House says Pelosi is losing control of her caucus and her agenda.
It's more than an internal fight. This is not a family fight. This is a war and a feud. The socialist Democrats inside that party are taking the party over.
Meanwhile, there's building pressure from other rank-and-file Democrats on Pelosi to go forward with impeachment. New Hampshire's Annie Custer says she supports a formal inquiry. And freshman Democrat Mike Levin from California tweeted he's now in favor, writing, "I now support an impeachment inquiry in order to get the truth for my constituents." That means at least 100 House members are now publicly on board. Pelosi is trying to hold them off for now.
Google on Capitol Hill, and a conservative voice accusing the company of censorship. I'm Wgxa Alvarez in Washington with the lawmakers' ongoing investigations into social media companies.
California becomes the third major city to ban facial recognition by police, saying the technology discriminates against minorities. An attorney with the American Civil Liberties Union told Fox News that facial recognition technology could be used by the government to identify people who attend protests, political rallies, church or AA meetings, and they say that's something that shouldn't be happening in the back room of a police station. New car technology like voice command functions and touch screens are all meant to make it easier to focus on the road and drive, but a new study reveals all that high-tech gear may be too distracting for some people. A recent study found that older drivers in the age range of 55 to 75 took their eyes off the road 8 seconds longer than drivers in their 20s and 30s when they did simple things like program a navigation system or change the radio. The Justice Department said this week it'll investigate online platforms like Google, Facebook, and Amazon. And as national correspondent Wgxa Alvarez tells us, this comes as these big tech companies are also under intense scrutiny by lawmakers.
The Department of Justice is putting Google, Facebook, and Amazon under a microscope. It will review how these market-leading platforms got their market-leading power and if they're stifling competition, innovation, ultimately hurting consumers.
Try and assess whether today's antitrust laws are kind of inadequate for these type of big new tech firms.
Ryan Bourne is the chair for Public Understanding of Economics at Cato Institute. He says it'll be about catching up to technology, proving these companies violated antitrust laws, and remembering we've seen this before. For example, when Microsoft was accused of violating antitrust laws in the 90s.
Capitalism through history has shown that even firms that appear incredibly dominant end up getting usurped by new products and new companies.
The DOJ's investigation will focus on the antitrust side of big tech, but Congress is looking into other aspects of these companies, such as whether there is political bias and algorithms in search engines.
Study after study has debunked suggestions of political bias.
Big tech's favorite defense is, it wasn't me, the algorithm did it.
Lawmakers such as Senator Ted Cruz highlight as examples of bias videos released by the right-leaning watchdog Project Veritas.
I really don't buy the idea that big tech is politically neutral.
In its latest video, Project Veritas says it's interviewing a senior software engineer with Google. He says while he doesn't have a smoking gun, there is political bias at Google, and it's reflected in the search engine.
I just know how algorithms are. They don't write themselves. We write them to do what we want them to do.
Meantime, this DOJ investigation comes as the Federal Trade Commission imposes a $5 billion penalty on Facebook, saying Facebook violated a 2012 order by deceiving users about privacy control, a sign that there are consequences if wrongdoing is found. Reporting in Washington, I'm Angelica Alvarez.
And our national correspondent reached out to Google for comment about the interview with their employee, but she hasn't heard back yet. They spoke to the employee by phone, and he confirms the information he shared and that he was put on administrative leave. Well, 2 children accidentally stuck in a car in 90-degree weather. Straight ahead, the moment when police rescue them. We'll show it to you. Now 10:14, a Georgia senator hopes to commemorate a Skidaway Island creek's history with a memorial. In April, a creek on the island was renamed Freedom Creek to honor the slaves seeking freedom from the Modena plantation. State Senator Lester Jackson is working with the Georgia Historical Society to get a marker for that creek, and funding for that memorial has already been secured. Jackson said he wants the creek to become a place where people can come and learn about history and their own heritage. Developing right now online, a family is giving back to their community. Arkansas mom Carrie Jernigan took advantage of a closeout sale at Payless. Well, Jernigan bought out the entire store. The family purchased about 1,500 pairs of shoes that she plans to give back to adults and kids in her community. Also developing on digital, a North Carolina man had a prime idea for his wife's birthday. Waylon McGuire said he decided to surprise his Amazon-loving wife with a cake decked out in one of her favorite things. Emily McGuire said she got a cake decorated like a delivery box, and it made her laugh. She posted some of the pictures of her cake on Facebook, where it racked up plenty of attention. That cake was created by Sweet Dreams Bakery in North Carolina. Well, tonight we continue our series looking back at some of the top headlines in Georgia back in 1969. 50 years ago this month, the Titan I missile was given to the city of Cordele, and since then it's been a landmark to the area. Victoria DeCardenas is looking back at how this missile made Crisp County its home.
And the theme was Meet Me at the Missile.
In 1969, this 98-foot missile made its way from California to Cordele, instantly making it a landmark. The massive missile monument is no model built to scale, nor is it a replica. This Titan I missile is the real thing. The Rotary Club of Cordele initiated this project under the leadership of former Rotary Club President John S. Pate. Pate was a retired fighter pilot and had strong ties to the military.
He knew about the missiles being available and put a request in. Let's see if we can get our government to donate the missile to Cordele so we can use it as a landmark.
But it wasn't that simple. The missile had to be dismantled and shipped cross-country to Robins Air Force Base, then down to Crisp County.
It took several years. It was a dream for several years of our Rotary Club, and a lot of planning and a lot of fundraising to make this happen.
The community rose to the occasion. Families donated land, money, time, and services to bring this missile home. And since it's reached its final destination, tourism exploded.
The investment has paid dividends for 50 years now for Cordele and Crisp County. All of the tourists riding up 75 and down 75 see the missile, and it's an attraction to bring people into Cordele to buy their gasoline, to have their meals in our restaurants, and to stay in our motels.
Dooley County native and current Rotary Club president Lauren Fletcher says this Titan I missile was her landmark to help people navigate through middle Georgia.
When I went off to school at Georgia, people wouldn't always know where Vienna, Georgia was, but if I tell them, you know that town with the missile at it, I mean, I'm able to tell them how close I am to that. So it was a way for me to connect with people from Atlanta and people from other states who travel south on I-75 and see it.
So the next time you pass exit 101 on I-75,
I know I'm close to home.
Welcome into the Skywatch Weather Center on this Friday evening. Time currently 10:18. I'm meteorologist Jake Mim, and I've been talking about this for the last several days. High pressure system off to our north, a dry air mass, if you will, sending air from the northeast here through the mid-state, keeping our temperatures a little bit cooler than normal, that's for sure. Over the last several days is kind of what we've been seeing. Lower 90s, upper 80s has been the theme for the last several days. Here's the frontal boundary off to our southeast that's going to try and make its way to the north over the next several days with a high building in the Bermuda Triangle that'll increase the chances for some moisture as we head on into early parts of next week. Now, the radar across middle Georgia right now, pretty quiet out there. Nothing in the way of rain. It's been pretty quiet. We haven't seen very many afternoon showers or thunderstorms over the last several days, and the same goes for southwestern Georgia as well. Hopefully, we can get those back in here by sometime next week. Temperatures across middle Georgia right now, upper 70s, mid to upper 70s across middle Georgia, 77 in Middlesville, 72 there in Graves, 75 in Warner Robins, and 76 there in Perry. So we're starting to cool off as we head into the overnight hours. For southwestern Georgia, pretty much the same thing. A little bit cooler, though. 70 there in Morgan, 77 in Albany, and 76 in Fitzgerald. So pretty good stuff there in southwestern Georgia. Day planner for southwestern Georgia tomorrow. As we wake up, 72, I think, as you head on out the door, warming up quickly into the upper 80s by 12, and then lower 90s for our high. It's going to be a little bit warmer than we've been dealing with the last several days, but not by much. We're going to be near normal temperatures, if you notice, pretty dry for southwestern Georgia. Now, the same goes for middle Georgia as well. Dry conditions for tomorrow, 70 at 8 a.m., 87 by 12, and I think lower 90s for highs here in middle Georgia as well for tomorrow. Your muggy meter for southwestern Georgia. A bit humid through the weekend as we head into early parts of next week. Like I said, that moisture is going to start to increase as we head on into Monday and Tuesday. And the same goes for middle Georgia, really. It's a little bit pleasant, though, this weekend and dry. I suggest if you have the opportunity to get out, go ahead and do that, because it's going to be pretty nice this weekend. As we head on into Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week, the humidity starts to rise a little bit again. As that frontal boundary moves to the north, we could get some more moisture in here, making it a little bit humid outside. Now, for the 10-day forecast for middle Georgia, 91 for tomorrow, 92 on Sunday. Monday and Tuesday, you notice we warm up into the upper 90s, and then we kind of start to dry things out, really, as we head on into the weekend and for early parts of next week. Notice those dry conditions stick around at least for the next 5 days. I'm tracking the next chance for rain, though, Thursday and Friday. And if you notice, we get into the mid to upper 90s as we start the month of August. Now, I brought someone into the studio with me today to help me with that southwestern Georgia forecast. Here she is. Emma, take it away.
Future Forecaster of the Week, brought to you by Air Pro Heating and Cooling.
Hi guys, my name's Emma and here's your Southwest Georgia forecast. Saturday mostly sunny at 91, Sunday mostly sunny at 91, Monday mostly sunny at 91, Tuesday mostly sunny at 93, Wednesday storm watches at 93. And here's the rest of your forecast.
Temperatures in the 90s and two little girls accidentally stuck in a car. And as you can imagine, their parents were panicked. But Ohio police showed up and got them out, and it was all caught on camera. Wgxa shows us the moment those girls were saved from the sweltering heat.
The window broke or no?
A Perkins Township police officer rushes to the parking lot of the Walmart on Milan Road on Saturday and is told two little girls are stuck inside an SUV in the stifling heat. Sergeant Martin Curran uses his baton to smash out a window and unlocks the door. The mother of one of the girls tells Sergeant Curran that her locks have been malfunctioning and she normally leaves the vehicle unlocked. But when she went to get the girls out of the car, she discovered the doors had been accidentally locked with the keys inside. A Walmart employee tried to smash out the window with a crowbar but was unsuccessful.
It's okay. We got you. You're okay.
The woman told Sergeant Curran that she realized how much danger the girls were in as a result of temperatures in the 90s and immediately called 911.
So they would have a squad en route. Do you want to sit them in the back of in the front of my car where there's some air?
Yeah.
Sergeant Curran has the 2 children and their mothers wait in his police cruiser until paramedics arrive at the scene.
By all means, have a seat.
The 2 girls are checked out and are given clean bills of health.
How about we all go into the back of the ambulance and we do some evaluations and then we do some paperwork, okay? Do you want to go to the hospital or anything? Let's go check temperatures and all that. Okay.
The doctors are going to help you, okay?
Perkins Township Police concluded there was no negligence involved, it was just an accident. But they do say the incident provides a cautionary tale for all parents.
I don't know how the door's locked because I know my lock's broken. I don't ever lock my doors.
People think leaving someone in the car for 5 minutes, okay. It's not. That temperature can rise quickly. As you can see in the video, the children had already started to sweat at that time. We make mistakes and, you know, the police are here to assist you. And if you make a mistake, call us. We'll come out and help you as best we can. You're not always going to be arrested. It's a mistake.
Now keep in mind, even on days where it's not as hot, the heat inside of a car can reach dangerous levels within an hour. In fact, in tests that Consumer Reports has done, even when it was just 61 degrees outside, the temperature inside of a closed vehicle can reach more than 105 degrees in just 1 hour. Jake?
And speaking of the temperatures, record-breaking heat in the UK has now become a nightmare for travelers, that is, those at London's Heathrow and Gatwick airports facing numerous delays after air traffic controllers ground flights following a technical issue, the incident marking the second day of travel disruptions in European capitals. That are seeing temps creeping up past 100 degrees. But those traveling out of town, like the members of these families, or this family, excuse me, now have to deal with the fact that their vacation will be delayed, if not canceled. And the intense weather is also being blamed for putting the brakes on the Tour de France after part of the course was damaged following a mudslide. Crazy stuff there. Back here in the Skywatch Weather Center, lows this morning were in the mid to upper 60s, and that shouldn't say Thursday, that should be Friday, actually, I apologize for that. Mid to upper 60s across portions of middle and southwestern Georgia. I think we could see the lows in the mid to upper 60s for tomorrow as well, and then we'll start to kind of get the lows back up into the 70s, which is about normal for this time of year. But we'll certainly take that here in the month of July. Your drought monitor for middle Georgia, yeah, most of the middle Georgia is considered to be in a abnormally dry stage, if you will. 25% of Georgia is in a drought this week, and that actually is 3% down from the past week. So we're starting to get some rain in here. We could use some more rain, though, especially in middle Georgia. For southwestern Georgia, though, the drought monitor, yeah, we're actually fairly normal. There's a couple of areas that are in an abnormally dry stage here in portions of central southwestern Georgia and then far western southwestern Georgia. So again, the drought for Georgia this week is about 25% and down from 3%, and I think we can get our next chances for rain coming up hopefully by the middle of next week. Stick around, more news and weather that works for you coming up after this short break.
Welcome back and thanks for watching. I'm Aaron Leedy. Tonight we want to take you live back to Macon, where Miles Garrett is reporting from a cemetery that has received complaints about being overgrown. And Miles, you've hit several roadblocks this evening in determining who actually owns that property.
Aaron, you're absolutely right. This afternoon, I spoke with a community member who drove by this property and was visibly disturbed with what he saw at this cemetery. I walked with him through this area and saw just how bad the situation is. There's multiple headstones and gravestones that are severely damaged. There's parts of it that's broken off and some that are just nearly invisible. There's woods covering up a good bit of it. It's located just off Pionona Avenue next to the Jesus Mission of Love Holiness Church. Now, I tried to contact those with the church by knocking on the door here as well as the church next door. I was eventually able to get in contact with Pastor Beatrice Collier. She told me that Unionville Baptist Church owns this area. I then went to that church where I spoke with Pastor Edwin Mack, and he told me that they don't own this property either. Now, those in the community want answers to bring this problem to an end.
You know, so let's come together as a community and let's do our part. And if we can chip in and help and get this cleaned up and show these people that are buried here the honor they deserve, let's do that.
Now, what's on your screen right now is a Google Earth picture of what the property looked like in 2017 and 2012, where it appeared to be in better shape. After we spoke with Pastor Mack, I also got in contact with a spokesperson with the city of Macon. They told me they don't own this property either. As you can see, the situation behind me, this brush here is still very much covering up a good bit of the gravestones, as I was saying earlier in some of the video that you saw just there. This upcoming week, next Monday, we're going to go and speak to the tax assessor's office. They were closed for business hours this afternoon when we tried to contact them to see just who owns this property. So overall, Aaron, not a very good site here just off Pinona, but we're going to be working for you to get those answers to you as soon as possible. For now, reporting live in Macon, I'm Miles Garrett.
Good Friday evening, everyone. Welcome to the Skywatch Weather Center. Time currently 10:33. I'm meteorologist Jake Mammon in for Chief Meteorologist Jeff Cox this evening. Well, it was another below average type of day in southwestern Georgia. Albany's Almanac, 91 for a high and 71 for a low. That high was about 11 degrees below the record set back in 1940 of 102 degrees, and we're certainly thankful for the fact that we were in the lower 90s this time of the year. And like I said, certainly below average, and there's plenty of rainfall that we've received in the month of July here in southwestern Georgia. And pretty much the same goes for portions of middle Georgia as well. If we take a look at Macon's Almanac, 92 degrees was the high today with a low of about 66 degrees. So that's about 8 degrees below the record high set back in 2010 of 100 degrees. And again, we're really much below normal. I mean, take that low out. That's about, 5 degrees below the normal average. So we'll take that, of course, certainly. Coming up, I'll have more on this high pressure system and how long it can last. In fact, coming up in just a few minutes, this drier air is going to be lasting for a little while. And how much can we expect some rain to show up in early parts of next week, Aaron?
New tonight, a man is accused of stealing 3 cases of Bud Light from the Murphy's Express convenience store on Gray Highway in Macon. That's according to a Bibb County Sheriff's Office report. Deputies say warrants for theft by shoplifting will be taken out against 49-year-old Robert Tufts. Bibb County investigators say a Macon church was broken into and had more than $1,000 worth of items stolen from it. That burglary happened at the Word Study Christian Center sometime between Tuesday and Wednesday. According to the report, a ladder, piano keyboard, and a cart were stolen. Anyone with information about this case can call the sheriff's office. Continuing coverage tonight, a father from Honduras is out of a detention center so he can mourn the death of his daughter. The 13-year-old died after hanging herself earlier this month. Manuel Gomez said that she killed herself because she was despondent about being separated from her father. Well, he sent her to the U.S. 4 years ago with his sister, but he was detained at the border several times when they tried to join her. His most recent trip attempt was in June, which activists say was the final straw for his daughter.
This week, Manuel laid to rest his daughter, Haiti Gomez, after she tragically passed away from grief of being separated from her father by an out-of-control deportation machine. Manuel Gomez, including his 13-year-old daughter, Haiti, fled violence from Honduras, and they were in a search of a better life here in the U.S.
Now, Haiti had been granted asylum and was a legal resident of the U.S. Immigration officials let Gomez leave the detention facility for 2 weeks so he could tend to his daughter's death. His attorney says he's received a 30-day extension on that leave. Gomez hopes his lawyers can find a way for him to stay in the U.S. permanently before he's due back to report to the facility. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials say a man was forcibly removed from his vehicle in Missouri, has been deported back to Mexico. Cheyenne Hoyt posted this confrontation between ICE agents and her boyfriend, Florencio Milan Vasquez, on Facebook Live. Now, they were trying to take Milan Vasquez into custody in Kansas City. Hoyt said she asked to see the warrant, but they refused. Police then arrived on the scene and ordered the 32-year-old out of the car. And when he refused, an ICE agent smashed the window and forcibly removed him. Mass arrests of Marines at Camp Pendleton. The service members apprehended and accused of various crimes. And these are the latest arrests. They're linked to another recent arrest of 2 other Marines. Fox News correspondent Ray Bogan has the new details of this roundup tonight.
16 Marines at Camp Pendleton arrested in dramatic fashion Thursday morning, authorities storming the camp during a battalion formation, which happens with about 800 Marines present.
NCIS came to the area and they pulled those 16 Marines out, and they were arrested at that point.
The Marines being accused of various crimes, including human smuggling and drug-related offenses, the arrest stemming from the investigation into another case involving 2 Marines suspected of helping smuggle 3 migrants across the southern border in exchange for payment after successful passage.
As those investigations were ongoing, they identified the identities of these 16 Marines as potentially being associated with or connected with those particular allegations or charges for those first 2 Marines.
The original pair have been federally charged with migrant smuggling, both pleading not guilty. In this new batch of arrests, all 16 were junior enlisted Marines with the 1st Battalion 5th Marines, most ranging from 18 to 22 years old, with ranks of private first class to corporal. According to the Marine Corps, none of the 16 are involved with enforcing border security.
If they are in fact found guilty of those crimes, then they'll be held appropriately accountable for that.
The connection between the 2 sets of apprehensions is not yet known. 8 other Marines were detained Thursday and questioned about drug-related activities not linked to the arrests. In Washington, Ray Bogan, Fox News.
Speaking out against vaping, straight ahead, one man's story that just may change your unhealthy habit. Tonight, Children's Hospital of Wisconsin is reporting a series of cases of hospitalized teens with seriously damaged lungs this month. And a hospital spokesman said they all have one thing in common.
We've had 8 teenagers who've been hospitalized at Children's with severe lung damage in a short period of time, and all have had the common thread of vaping. We're working with the Wisconsin Department of Health Services to better understand what the cause of this is and what the potential long-term effects on these teenagers might be. The 8 patients have had a variety of illnesses, some of which have been hospitalized in our intensive care unit and have required significant therapy to help them breathe. We don't understand all the implications of that right now, but they all have had fairly severe lung damage.
Now, the hospital says one of the 8 teens is still hospitalized there. The American Lung Association warns teens to avoid e-cigarettes because their lungs are still developing. Well, one man is speaking out about how a simple activity nearly cost him his life. Vaping is something he did pretty often, but he says he'll never do it again, and he wants others to take note. Our sister station in Salt Lake City, Utah, sat down exclusively with him, and he wants others to know the risks before this potentially takes your last breath.
Ended up almost killing me.
Alex Mitchell is back home in Provo.
I'm at 25% diminished lung capacity now.
After a rough few weeks.
I think it's crazy how fast it escalated.
He used to vape daily, but last month started feeling sick.
I bought a new bottle of juice, and literally the next day is when everything started going downhill.
Doctors in Payson weren't sure what the problem was. Then one figured it out.
That's when they decided to fly me to U of U.
Mitchell had developed lipoid pneumonia, caused when fat particles are inhaled.
Which eventually turned into acute respiratory distress syndrome, which ended up in me having to be on ECMO, which is basically a life support.
And you're wondering, am I going to have to bury this child?
His dad, Daniel,
I'm not ashamed to say it, I wept for my son.
Sat by his bed, hoping for the best. Did you think you were going to lose him?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I felt that we were going to be planning a funeral.
And that was a very real possibility.
Frankly, a lot of patients don't make it.
Doctor at the U, Sean Callahan, says cases like this are becoming more common.
We're understanding more and more that this is a pretty dangerous activity.
And better regulation is needed.
I'm really concerned that this is being marketed to young people.
That's how the Mitchells feel too.
Vaping's promoted as a safer alternative when in reality it's not.
You take that into your system and there's consequences, and those consequences may be death.
And want others to know the risks. Would you ever vape again?
No.
You're done?
Done.
If somebody's so dangerous that you have to search them daily, yet they still manage to get in and do what that shooter did, then maybe the solution is to keep the guns out of the hands of those mentally ill people.
New developments in the case of that shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. Straight ahead, what these documents are now showing.
From the Terrorism Alert Desk in Washington, I'm Lindsay Mastis. A man accused of plotting to bomb a church in Pittsburgh is pleading not guilty to terrorism charges. Authorities say Mustafa Musab al-Awimer, a Syrian refugee, was inspired by ISIS and had detailed plans to bomb a small Christian church. Al-Awimer was arrested last month after meeting with an undercover FBI agent. From the Terrorism Alert Desk in Washington, I'm Lindsay Mastis.
In Southwest Georgia this week, the Criminal Gang Network of Action Task Force met yesterday, and they addressed different factors and outcomes that come from gang-related crimes. And we are in the middle of a national debate about border security as the president calls the situation a national emergency. President Trump cites a surge in crime by violent groups like MS-13, which is an infamous gang, using the motto kill, steal, rape, and control. The White House says there are about 10,000 MS-13 gang members in the U.S. today. Many are from Central American countries like Honduras, where two hitmen who agreed to be interviewed said that they are paid $1,000 for each kill.
Both hitmen? Yeah. Who do you kill, though?
Anyone who's not part of the gang.
So who tells you who to kill?
The boss shows us a picture and says, you need to do this and this and this, and we go do it.
Do you guys ever feel bad?
No. In this life, there is no feeling.
There's an ongoing exodus in Honduras, not just gang members, but families enduring a long trek in search of a better life. Why so many are leaving, and more of that rare interview with MS-13 gang members this Sunday on Full Measure with Cheryl Atkinson right here on this station. Startling new revelations tonight in the case of the alleged shooter at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. Newly released documents show Nicholas Cruz was such a threat that he was searched for weapons each morning at school.
Well, it's sad. I mean, it's sad.
Jeffrey Caskey, whose two sons Cameron and Holden survived the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School shooting spree, is reacting to disturbing details that have just come to light about school shooter Nicholas Cruz, who police say carried out the Parkland shooting spree that claimed 17 lives in February 2018. A deposition from a security guard says months before the shooting, Cruz was searched for weapons every morning when he arrived at school. The security guard who searched Cruz said, "I think we got concerned when we found out that he drank bleach or tried to hurt himself or something like that, the kid. That's when we started having the kid come in every morning to be searched by me, but never found a weapon on the kid, never." The deposition also reveals Cruz was not allowed to bring a backpack to school. About a year later, police say Cruz, who by that time was no longer a student at the school, came onto campus and gunned down 17 people with an assault rifle.
If somebody's so dangerous that you have to search them daily, yet they still manage to get in and do what that shooter did, then maybe the solution is to keep the guns out of the hands of those mentally ill people.
So how do we do that? Caskey says a mental health screening should be required before anyone can buy an assault-type rifle.
If this guy had to do any type of counseling prior to being able to buy this weapon, they wouldn't have given him a gun, they would have given him a straitjacket.
Andrew Pollack, another Marjory Stoneman Douglas parent, said this in a tweet. Broward schools knew my daughter's killer was such a threat that they searched him every morning, yet they failed to let parents know and subjected our kids to this danger. Parents, become aware of what's going on at your kid's school. According to the deposition, the security guard said, with some of the things he was doing, trying to frighten kids, jumping from behind, yes, we were watching him.
Based on his history, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, I think it would have been negligent not to keep a close eye on him.
Caskey says the answer, in his opinion, is schools need more money for mental health counseling, and he feels lawmakers need to wake up and start working on that issue. In West Palm Beach, Florida, Al Peffley reporting.
Welcome into the Skywatch Weather Center on this Friday evening time. Currently 10:49. I'm meteorologist Jake Mammon. Yeah, taking a look at the current setup. I've been talking about this over the last several days. High pressure to our north, dry air mass kind of settling in here with the winds coming out of the northeast, keeping our temperatures a little bit cool, at least this week as we head on into the weekend. The front to our southeast going to try to make its way to the north as a high in the Bermuda Triangle tries to build, bringing in some more moisture as we head into the early parts of next week. Looking outside from our radar in middle Georgia here, not much going out there really. Haven't seen any rainfall or rain showers, I should say, or storms in the last several days, at least in the afternoons, and the same goes for southwestern Georgia. We could use that rain, though, because we are certainly dry here in middle and southwestern Georgia. Now, temperatures across middle Georgia right now, 77 in Milledgeville, 71 there in Gray, 76 in Macon, and 75 there in Warner Robins. We're starting to cool off as we head into the overnight hours. Southwestern Georgia, pretty much the same thing, 72 in Fitzgerald, 76 there in Ashburn, 77 in Albany in the winter there, 68 in Morgan. Pretty chilly heading on into the overnight hours. Day planner for southwestern Georgia, 72 by 8 a.m., quickly warming into the mid-80s by 12. And I think we see highs in the lower 90s for southwestern Georgia, but notice dry conditions for tomorrow. Your day planner for middle Georgia, 70 by 8 a.m., upper 80s by 12, and then lower 90s for highs as well. And of course, dry here in middle Georgia. Your muggy meter for southwestern Georgia, think of it as kind of like a comfort level. A bit humid as we head on into the weekend, and that kind of remains throughout the weekend and into early parts of next week. For middle Georgia, not so much the same story. Pleasant as we head on into the weekend, but then it kind of starts to increase Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So if you have plans, go ahead and keep them this weekend. I think the conditions will be dry and the temperatures will be okay in the lower 90s, I believe. So the southwestern Georgia 10-day forecast, 91 for Saturday, 91 on Sunday, and then we start to warm up into the lower 90s, even some mid-90s maybe by late next week. The chances for rain show up Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for southwestern Georgia, but notice for the next several days I think will be dry. And for the 10-day forecast for middle Georgia, 91 for tomorrow, 92 on Sunday, and then if you notice, 93, and we start to warm up into the middle 90s by Tuesday and Wednesday. So notice there, Saturday through at least the early parts of next week, I think we stay dry. There could be a few chances, but I don't think those chances really start to increase until about Thursday and Friday of next week. Noticing that we're starting the month of August there on Thursday with temperatures in the mid-90s. So we'll take that to round out the month of July. Stick around for more weather and news that works for you coming up after this short break. Here we go. As the second blistering heat wave continues to grip Europe this summer, the Netherlands is getting creative in order to save their roads from melting. Check this out. With temperatures in the triple digits in the Netherlands, roadside residue could start melting and sticking to car tires. To prevent roads from deteriorating, some Dutch towns are spraying salted water on the asphalt. The heat in the Netherlands set all-time high temperatures Thursday, with readings rising to 105.2 degrees. Crazy stuff there. They've been dealing with some heat over there across the Atlantic Ocean. But back here in middle Georgia, in the Skywatch Weather Center, we're talking about the lows that were this morning, mid to upper 60s. That's pretty nice for the end of July, or the middle of the summer, I should say. 67 as a low in Warner Robins, 68 there in Cordele, and 68 there in Moultrie. And we'll, of course, take those lows any time of the week, especially in July. So, drought monitor for middle Georgia. Abnormally dry conditions still remain. A few moderate areas of drought in portions of, Houston County, Twiggs County, in portions of central middle Georgia, if you will. But from last week, we were down 3%. So we're starting to kind of try and put a little bit of a dent in that drought. I don't think we'll see any more rain, at least until the middle or later of next week. We could definitely use some, but in southwestern Georgia, it's not too bad. It's pretty normal down there. A few areas that have seen some abnormally dry conditions there in portions of central southwestern Georgia and far western southwestern Georgia. And again, it's down 3%, and I think the conditions will be dry throughout the rest of this weekend and early parts of next week, but rain starts to return by the middle of next week, Aaron.
All right, Jake, thanks so much. Hey, finally tonight, grasshoppers have taken over the Las Vegas Valley. Some are calling it the Great Grasshopper Invasion of 2019. Swarms of the insects have been seen across the Las Vegas Valley this week. So why are they there? Well, estate entomologist Jeff Knight says these are known as pallid-winged grasshoppers, which is a common desert species. He's only seen large populations like this a handful of times in his 40-year career. And yeah, very interesting. The benefit of being in Vegas is, you can just go back into the casino.
That's
and
true.
Just get away from
Get
them.
away,
So,
yeah. Pretty easy stuff there.
Well, that is all the time we have for this Friday night. As always, thank you so much for watching.
Daily Mail is next. Have a good night, everyone.